On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
So what do we have in this episode, Mr. John?
Well, Hennis, first of all we go to South America, where there's been a new species of anaconda discovered. And I asked Richard Freeman what the implications are for his hunt, his ongoing hunt for giant anacondas. And then we go to Tajikistan, again with Richard Freeman, and Richard tells me all about his discoveries in Tajikistan that the long-lost Caspian tiger, which is supposed to have been extinct since the 60s or 70s, isn't, and still survives, and how the people from the tiger conservation groups weren't even the slightest bit interested. Peace out.
I really like the old credits.
And now, it's Gwen Dibley's Pearls of Wisdom.
Fry pants catch no fish.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and as you can see, I'm still lolling back on piles of pillows as if I was a 18th century lady of leisure, maybe in a sedan chair. This is, as regular viewers will know, because I have been extremely ill in the last few months, and I've managed to damage my feet so badly that there are even thoughts that it might end up, my right foot at least, might end up being what do they call it, cut off, amputated, that's the word, being amputated. And as I'm sure you can imagine, this is something that I really don't want to happen, so I am following the doctor's instructions to keep my feet off the ground and to keep weight off them as much as I can. And so in order to do so, I'm sitting back with my feet up on a stool that my grandfather made for me when I was a little boy, and that I've always thought of as the granddad stool. I've now got my feet on the granddad stool, feet up on the granddad stool, and I am looking very languid and laid back here, but I truly aren't. Am not, aren't, I truly ain't. Oh, I don't know. You get the point. What you probably don't know, if you're a regular viewer, is that every Saturday at 3 o'clock and every Wednesday at 6:30 in the evening, we bring you a show which is a mélange, a potpourri, if you like, of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. What's surreality, you ask? A copper load. Otis.
I once saw a crab, and it was near a shoe polish factory.
For those of us who like snakes, like me and Richard like snakes, there have been some very exciting news this week. Apparently, there has been a new species of anaconda discovered.
A fourth species of anaconda has been identified. The Benny anaconda was not found in the wild, but identified from specimens held in a German museum. Apparently it's only found in the northeast of Bolivia. That makes 4 species of anaconda: the famous green anaconda, which is the one everybody's heard of, the much smaller yellow anaconda, which in my experience is much snappier and more aggressive, and Ducenge's anaconda, now joined by the Benny anaconda. Now you might ask, what bearing does this have on stories of the giant anaconda? Well, there's 2 schools of thought. The first school of thought is that there may be an unidentified species of giant anaconda, a species of anaconda that's much bigger than the other 4. And the second school of thought is that these are just freak individuals of the green anaconda, which is the biggest of the known anacondas, reaching around about 9 metres. So an anaconda of 12, 13, 14 metres is not that great a push. Ones I think of 100, 150 feet are pure fiction, or people have seen a very large anaconda swimming and pulling a wake behind it, and then have added that wake to the length of the anaconda erroneously. I would plump for the latter idea, that the giant anaconda is based mainly on freakishly large individuals of the green anaconda. However, there is talk of a completely different giant snake in South America, the Sicuriju gigante, which supposedly grows to fantastic sizes and has luminous eyes that light up blue at night with bioluminescence. And many of these were reported in the early part of the last century, in the 1920s and 30s and so forth. A lot of them by missionaries working in South America who had seen these huge snakes. But reports of these giant snakes with glowing eyes seem to have petered out. You don't get these reports anymore in the way you still get reports of the giant anaconda. So what they were or are remains a mystery.
I think possibly the most famous giant anaconda story from South America is the one of the snake which Percy Fawcett, the great explorer, allegedly encountered. Which of the different giant snakes would you say that was?
Well, I don't believe Percy Fawcett's account, because he said that this creature was over 60 feet long, but then he said it was only a foot wide. And he said, it had probably been without food for some time. Now, even the skeleton of an anaconda of over 60 feet is going to be more than a foot wide. A 60-foot anaconda is going to be over 3 feet wide. So I don't believe a word of his story.
John Bashford Snell phoned us, didn't he, about 10 years ago, to say that he was following up stories of a giant snake. I think this was in a large pond, wasn't this in Bolivia?
This was in Bolivia on a farm where the farmer told him there was an anaconda of about 43 feet in this lake that had eaten his pig, and it was still in this lake, and he was going to follow up on it, but we never heard any more of it.
That's one of the most frustrating things about cryptozoology. Maybe half of the stories we're sent just fizzle out and don't go anywhere. Recently we had a very pleasant visit from a young filmmaker called Peter Vitter, who's making a documentary about cryptozoology in general and the CFZ in particular. And he asked both me and Richard a lot of very interesting questions, which, as we do, we recorded, and which we're going to be using in On the Track over the next few weeks, actually probably up until the end of the year. First of all, he was talking to Richard about the expedition that he did to Tajikistan in 2017 or 2018.
2018. We were looking for a relic hominin called the gull, but a lot of people we talked to had seen tigers there. Now, the tiger that used to live in that part of the world is called the Caspian tiger, and it's supposed to have been hunted into extinction in 1960. But we spoke to a biology teacher that had seen one, a park ranger that had seen one just a month before we were there, literally. We spoke to hunters that had said they'd shot wild goats and the tiger had taken their kill. Farmers that had livestock taken. And we talked to some imams from a local mosque. They talked to us for ages, and then they said, yeah, everybody knows that there are tigers here. Many people have seen them. And the people that see them most are hunters and honey farmers, because they go out into the wilds a lot. So we must have had a dozen or so witnesses that we spoke to that had seen Caspian tigers. So when I got back to England, I wrote all of this up as a report, and I sent it to every single tiger conservation group that I could find, and only one bothered to get back to me, and they said, oh, it's very interesting, but we only deal with Siberian tigers. Nobody was interested.
So was that, I don't know, not soul crushing, but was that not?
It makes you think that the people that are supposed to be dealing with this are lazy and incompetent. The people that are behind these charities that are supposed to be doing this work don't seem to be interested.
It's a bit like parcels that just got delivered, which isn't it? When the postman just comes in, chucks a pile of parcels into the back porch, even though there's a puddle in there.
Yeah.
And it's because people don't care. And the people who are paid to do this don't care, whereas the people who do care, the people like me and Richard, who finance ourselves by writing stupid articles for tropical fish magazines.
But that's why that sequence of film is not going to any tiger conservation groups, it's going straight into this documentary. Because, the last time we tried to give them information, they didn't even grace us with an answer.
It will go, though, I don't know if it's gone already, to Debbie Marta, who's a remarkable woman she's an English woman, she lives in Sumatra, and she runs tiger conservation, doesn't she, in Sumatra?
She was the head of the tiger conservation group in Indonesia. I believe Dali, our Indonesian guide, said she's moved back to England now, so she might have retired. Or she might have been forced out by the new bureaucracy and corruption that we're seeing in Indonesia.
Well, that's actually one of the big things that has been a problem in the last expedition, isn't it, Richard? That in the last 5 years, apparently, and by the way, anybody watching this, I am not being Islamophobic. My father was an Islamic scholar who lived in northern Nigeria for many years and was friends with the Emir of Zaria and his 2 imams. But in the last 5 years, the influence of the new radical Islamists from Saudi Arabia is changing the way that Islam is working in Indonesia, because Indonesia is actually the largest Muslim country in the world, which nobody ever seems to realise. It's one of the oldest. It was the first country, I believe, outside Saudi Arabia that the original Muslim, I don't know if they were called missionaries, but whatever, the Muslim equivalent of missionaries went to and converted the general public only relatively few years after the death of Muhammad. But Richard will tell you, in the last expedition, the influence of radical Islamism is becoming a serious problem for people like us when we're working in Indonesia. Rich, as I can hardly remember words at the moment, you go.
Well, the last time we were in Sumatra, we'd come out of the jungle and we were going to be going home in a couple of days, so we decided to have a night in a hotel in Padang, which is a deeply unproposing city on the coast of Sumatra, western Sumatra. And I hate camping. I have to do a lot of it because I go on expeditions, but I don't find it much fun, and I rarely get a decent night's sleep under canvas. Why people go camping in England for fun is beyond me. They must be out of their goddamn tree. Anyway, I was sleeping on a mattress for the first time in ages and having a nice dream when 3 o'clock in the morning there's a pounding at the door. So bleary-eyed and wearing nothing but my pants, I stagger to the door, open it up to find a uniformed armed militia there waving guns about. And our guide Dali explains that these are Islamic military police, and every weekend in Padang they go round every single hotel, banging on every door, looking for unmarried couples so they can arrest them, throw them in prison, and then photograph them, have the photographs blown up and put them on billboards around the city to shame them. And up in the north of Sumatra, in Aceh, they flog them as well. And as well as that kind of nonsense, which shows you why you keep state and church separate, there's a hell of a lot of corruption now in Sumatra, which they never used to be. We used to concentrate on an area called Kerinci Sablat National Park, particularly an area around Gunung Tujuh, the Lake of Seven Peaks, and that's where we found a lot of tracks and heard of a lot of vocalisations. And my friend Dave Archer actually saw an orang pendek there a few years ago, and that's where we generally go. But now they've cottoned on to Westerners being interested, so if you go into the national parks they charge you exorbitant prices, and then they will charge you more if you have cameras and you're doing research, and then the rangers, if they know that there are Western scientists there, they'll all come on the scrounge for backhanders, and one will come and tell all his mates, then all his mates will come. So at this time around we had to do our work in jungles that were outside of national parks.
And so overall, would you say, kind of over the years of doing all your expeditions, it's gotten harder just in general in all senses, not just in...
In Sumatra it's certainly gotten more difficult this time around because everybody is corrupt, everybody is on the want. In other areas it's just a financial thing that it takes more to get there now. Everything's more expensive rather than corruption or so forth. The other creature that I've gone looking for multiple times is the Tasmanian wolf, the thylacine, which is a flesh-eating marsupial that is an example of convergent evolution. It looks like a dog or a wolf with stripes along the back, but it's a marsupial. Its closest living relative is a creature called the numbat, and it's also related to the Tasmanian devil. It's supposed to have been hunted into extinction in the 1930s, but there have been over 4,000 sightings of it, including by park rangers and a zoologist. So I've been over to Tasmania now 3 times looking for it, and I've spoken to people with no axe to grind, no reason to lie, that have seen this thing, such as a guy who's employed by the government to go out and shoot and cull feral cats, which are a problem in Australia. He's seen it twice. Another guy that ran an arboretum, he had seen it from a car with his wife, and another car behind them full of people saw it. Another witness I talked to, an old guy, sadly now he's passed away, he was in his 90s, but in the 70s he'd been working in a hydroelectric plant, and him and a car full of people on the way to work saw one of these things walk out into the middle of the road. They all had it in perfect view for ages. So I've been back there now 3 times, and that's stayed the same. That's been very good. There's been no bureaucracy there. It's expensive to get there, but once you're there it's fine. It's just Sumatra where it seems that the bureaucracy and the corruption are riding high.
Richard, I mean, Tajikistan is a Muslim country. Did you find any of these problems when you were out there? Did you find any political or religious problems out there?
In Tajikistan, there were no political or religious problems. In fact, they couldn't have been more hospitable to you. We were overwhelmed by how kind they were. If someone had seen a gull or a Caspian tiger had any information, they'd take you into their house and they'd sit you down, and they love honey. They're mad for honey, and they have great goblets of honey. They bring you goblets of honey and sweets. They eat their pudding before the main meal. You go to talk to these people, and you might talk to several in a day, and they all feed you. So by the end of the day, you're bloated.
So you know that John Shuttleworth is not a Tajik.
Why is that?
Because he's got a song that's called "I Can't Go Back to Savoury Now" about eating a pudding after.
Oh yeah. Anyway.
So I'm just talking bollocks.
They're mad in Tajikistan. They're mad for egg and chips. You wouldn't think it, but everywhere they serve egg and chips, and they love it. And they can't do enough for you in Tajikistan. We've talked to the honey farmers who had seen both ghoul and Caspian tigers, and they were saying, "Oh no, we're your hosts. It's our duty," and they were genuinely happy to talk to us and feed us honey and egg and chips.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page, and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, wants me to remind you, always press the notification bell. Otherwise you won't be told when there's a new show to watch.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
And so, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the end of another show. I hope you enjoyed it. Richard and I certainly enjoyed putting it together. It's been a very nice day, and we've managed to achieve an awful lot. I want to say a big thank you to Richard and to Peter Vitter, who have been my guests this issue. Why do I keep on saying issue? It's because I'm a print journalist, not a video journalist. This episode, and I want to say a big thank you to Louis, my producer, and to Graham Inglis, who, as well as being an old friend of mine and the Deputy Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology for the last 26 years, is also my carer. And as my state of health rumbles from good to bad to worse, it's very, very good that I've got Graham around for me to be able to rely upon, because otherwise I would seriously be in the crap. So thank you, Graham, for everything you do. Thank you very much to Miss Shelley and Miss Judy for doing house stuff and making the house really, really nice. And much love to Miss Maxine all the way over there in Essex, who's not very well at the moment. We're sending you all our love and all our healing vibes so you can get better, and you can come here in the spring and bully me, because that would be very nice and I'm looking forward to it. So, boys and girls, we'll be back on Wednesday. What are we going to be talking about? I have no idea. And we'll be back next Saturday. What are we going to be talking about? I have no idea. So, you're just going to have to tune in and watch, because otherwise you're not going to find out. And so, if you tune in to watch, are you waiting, Mr. McCrinnan? I'll be seeing you.